Live NFL trivia every Tuesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge and have a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. When you think of athletes who gave up a very successful career in one sport to go and play baseball, there's one name that immediately comes to mind. Obviously, I'm talking about Michael Jordan. In short, after the 1993 NBA season, Jordan decided in the prime of his career after winning 3 straight NBA Finals to retire from the league and go play minor league baseball. This was short-lived, as after spending just over a year in the minors, he returned to the NBA and further cemented his basketball legacy. However, there's another player that tried to do something similar nearly a quarter century before Jordan that you might not know about. After the 1970 season, Mike Garrett, a star running back who had made multiple Pro Bowls and was named the winner of the Heisman during his college days at USC, decided to hang it up in the prime of his career for a shot at playing baseball. The end result? Well, let's just say the whole saga was pretty bizarre. This is the story behind Mike Garrett throwing away a highly successful NFL career for a shot at playing Major League Baseball. Before I talk about the decision, we need some context to understand how good Garrett was at football. Let's be very clear. Garrett was not a fringe player who knew his days in the league were numbered and was looking at baseball as a way of continuing to play professional sports. Garrett was a star. It began in his college days at USC, where he led the Athletic Association of Western Universities in rushing yards 3 times from 1963 to 65, and led the conference in touchdowns in both 1964 and 1965. During that 1965 season, he scored 13 rushing touchdowns and posted 1,440 yards rushing, while guiding USC to a 7-2-1 finish and a top 10 ranking in the AP poll. For his efforts, Garrett won the Heisman, becoming the first USC player to ever win this award. Because of his strong collegiate career, where he finished as the then all-time leader in rushing across the entire NCAA, he was able to get drafted by both the Los Angeles Rams in the NFL and the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFL. Garrett decided to play in the AFL and immediately became a star. As a rookie, he led the league with 5.4 yards per carry and finished second with 801 rushing yards. And somehow, despite a really strong rookie career, Garrett was even better in 1967. Not only was he named a Pro Bowler again, but he was named a first-team All-Pro. He had 1,087 rushing yards, scored a touchdown in 8 of the team's first 9 games, and had some absurdly good performances, including one against the Jets where he had 192 rushing yards and over 8 yards per carry, and one against the Broncos where he had 169 rushing yards on over 8 yards per carry. During his first 4 years with the Chiefs, he was one of the top running backs in the American Football League, and he was so good that in 1978, the Chiefs inducted him into their Hall of Fame. But 1970 was a year of change, because not only would the American Football League cease to exist this year, but Mike Garrett's pro football career was heading down that path as well. He was thinking about giving it all up for a shot at playing some baseball. Why would Garrett even think about giving up a successful career in football for the possibility of baseball? Well, there were 2 reasons. Number 1, Garrett was a pretty talented baseball player and a 2-sport athlete. As a junior at USC, he hit .309 and led the team in hits, RBI, and stolen bases. And over his career at USC, he had a very impressive .328. He was good enough to be noticed by scouts and drafted multiple times in the MLB draft. He got drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 41st round of the 1965 draft, and got drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers in a January draft in 1966. And in 1970, he got drafted again by the Dodgers in the 35th round. Garrett was a Los Angeles man. He was born in LA, he went to high school in LA, and he went to college in LA. The opportunity to play for the Dodgers, as slim as it may have been, was there. And as Garrett said, "I just want to try something else. I'm not tired of football, I've just always wanted to play for the Dodgers." But the other reason may have been a bit sadder and more personal. During the 1970 offseason, Garrett's stepfather passed away after an unsuccessful operation. And after that death, Garrett was worried about his mother. As he said, "All of my brothers and sisters are starting to leave home, and Mom can take care of herself, but she's getting to be more and more alone. My mom needs me." With that, Garrett announced that the 1970 season would be his last in football. After 1970, he was retiring to play for the Dodgers. Garrett's final year in pro football was not a very good one. He struggled in his first 3 games with the Chiefs, picking up just 62 yards on less than 3 yards per carry while never finding the end zone, and was then traded to the San Diego Chargers for a draft pick, partly to be closer to home, and partly because he feuded with head coach Hank Stram. With the Chargers, he was still struggling, as entering the final week of the season, he had just 86 yards rushing with the team. You could tell that something was off. However, in the finale against his old team, he went off. He showed flashes of his old self, scoring 2 touchdowns in a 31-13 victory, including a 44-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter, which would turn out to be the final points of the entire season for San Diego. It was a heck of a swan song for Garrett. Despite an awful 1970 campaign, which was easily the worst of his career, he ended on a high note. And with that, he was done. He was hanging up the cleats for good. As he said after the game, those were probably the last 2 touchdowns I'll ever score. I'm very sad about leaving pro football because I met some wonderful people, but this is it. I'm finished with football. Garrett, who hadn't played a game of baseball since the spring of 1965, was ready to take a leap of faith. How did it turn out? Let's just say he scored a few more touchdowns after that. What Garrett was attempting to do was almost unprecedented. Yes, we had seen athletes play in both the NFL and MLB before, but there are a few caveats to this. The athletes who did this before Garrett went down one of 2 paths. One path was to play in both leagues simultaneously. This is what a ton of athletes did in the 1920s, and what guys like Steve Filipowicz did in the mid-1940s, when he played for both the New York Baseball Giants and the New York Football Giants. The other path was that they flamed down in one league and decided to try the other league. Patty Driscoll, Luke Urban, and Russ Young, just to name a few, are some that fit into this category. Nobody gave up a successful NFL career to play baseball. That's not how it worked, especially not in the 1970s, when football was starting to overtake baseball as the country's most popular sport. Garrett was trying to enter uncharted waters. And 1 month after the 1970 season ended, Garrett was still dead set on his plans to join the Dodgers at spring training and try and make the team. As Garrett said, "Some people may think I'm kidding, but I'm not." However, 2 weeks later, before spring training even started, Garrett had a change of plans. After being dead set on baseball in 1971, he switched course and decided to come back to football. Garrett said that even though his desire to undertake a baseball career was sincere, that after a lot of deliberation, that it was in his best interest to continue to play football. That raises the question, what the heck changed? Why did he change his mind so quickly without even stepping on the diamond? There's 4 plausible explanations, all of which when combined make a lot of sense. Number 1 comes from a family standpoint. The fact that he was with the Chargers and was closer to his mom definitely helped. He wanted to be there for his mom in Los Angeles, and with the exception of playing for the Rams, the Chargers are about as close as you can get. Number 2 comes from a football standpoint. In 1971, Sid Gilman became the head coach of the Chargers again. The eventual Hall of Fame coach was known as an offensive mastermind, as the head coach of the Rams and the Chargers over the previous decade and a half led the league in points scored 3 times. When the Chargers won the AFL Championship in 1963, Gilman's team led the league with over 28.5 points scored per game, including 51 points in the AFL Championship. Garrett said that he loved Gilman's offense and coaching style, and that it fit him perfectly. Number 3, as you might expect, comes from a monetary standpoint. At the end of the day, money talks. And even though that it wasn't about the money for Garrett, San Diego's offer definitely didn't hurt. While the terms of the contract were undisclosed, considering the fact that he made $35,000 in 1970, and considering the fact that Garrett called the terms of the new contract very attractive, you can get an idea of just how much he was making under this new deal. It was far more than he would have made in the minor leagues with the Dodgers, I can guarantee you that much. But number 4 may have been the biggest reason of them all, because despite all these factors swaying and changing Garrett's mind, perhaps the biggest one had to do with the Dodgers themselves. Even though the Dodgers drafted him twice, and even though they wanted him and expressed interest, maybe they got cold feet. The 4th and final reason comes from a legal standpoint. In short, even though Garrett thought his contract ran out after the 1970 season, Chargers general manager Sid Gilman said that it didn't run out until 1971. As is pretty standard in most sports contracts, players aren't allowed to participate in dangerous activities, with baseball being one of them. Even though Gilman said that he wouldn't stand in Garrett's way if his heart was set on baseball, the Dodgers were definitely worried about this. Vice President Al Campanis said, "We'd like to sign him, but not if it means a lawsuit pitting football against baseball." To sign a 26-year-old who hadn't played in 5 years, was a 31st round pick, and is going to need a ton of practice just to have a shot at being competitive was already a huge risk. Combine that with the threat of a lawsuit, and maybe the Dodgers were the ones that got cold feet and decided that it wasn't worth it. Just like that, Garrett's baseball dreams were done. Garrett would never play professional baseball, but now he would continue his highly successful football career. And in the early 1970s, after an awful 1970 season where he thought he was done, he rebounded nicely for the most part and got a second win. He would spend 3 more years with the Chargers, serving as the team's starter running back all the way through 1973. In 1971, he scored 2 game-winning fourth-quarter touchdowns, scoring the go-ahead touchdown against the Vikings and scoring from 26 yards out in a 21-14 victory against the Kansas City Chiefs to open up the season. And in 1972, he even crossed the 1,000-yard mark again, finishing 6th in the league in yards from scrimmage. After announcing that he was calling it quits, he picked up another 2,700 yards from scrimmage. Not too bad, all things considered. In 1974, Garrett officially announced his retirement from the NFL. This one was legit. His stint with the Chargers did have some downs, especially at the end, with him telling reporters at the end of the 1972 season that he felt like the Chargers didn't appreciate him enough, and with him getting benched in 1973 for some fumbling problems. However, as I said earlier, he did a lot of good things with the team, and when he retired, was the 12th leading rusher in the history of professional football. All in all, he had a fantastic career. The odds that we see any star player doing something similar to what Garrett tried to do back in 1970 are slim to none. Considering the pay that NFL players make versus guys in the minor leagues, I can't imagine guys like Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray deciding right now to make a career change, regardless of where they were drafted or what team they could be playing for. And if he stuck with it and wound up playing with the Dodgers and going to spring training, who knows how Garrett's career would have turned out. But instead of remembering him as a baseball player, today, people remember Garrett as an extremely good football player and as one of the most electrifying players of his era. Be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaredGator9 and subscribe to 60-Second NFL History on YouTube. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.